for a bit, and it won't be too long until January comes along, and major decisions will be made. And AJ pointed out that this is a very significant state for sending a strong message. I've had a strong message for a long time, and I've been talking about it for many, many years, if not decades. But it seems like the message of liberty is more appropriate now than it has been a long, long time, and that's very encouraging, I believe. There's probably no doubt in the minds of almost all Americans that we have some serious problems. Most people identify them as economic problems. We're in the economic doldrums, unemployment is high. Probably conditions are much worse than the government admits, because they talk about unemployment rates at 9%, but if you count the people who have been underemployed and not really having a real job but only a part-time job, it's 17%. And if you count all the people who have given up looking for work, it's over 22%. And this is one reason why people will feel a lot worse than when the government says, oh, okay, it's 9%, it's bad, but it's not a disaster. Most Americans I talk to feel like there's something structurally wrong and that we're not going to be over this rather quickly, and we have to do some major changes. Today, though, most Americans, I think, are very frustrated with what they're getting out of Washington. They hear the talk, but nothing seems to improve. So often, Washington is driven by trying to build up a lot of fear with the people. And I think this is in all areas, whether it's foreign policy or whether it's domestic policy. The fear and the foreign policy will be, you know, we have to invade this country, we have to start another war. Before you know it, they're going to be on our shores and invading us and dropping nuclear weapons on us. And then we go to war and we find out that the fears were much overblown. And just a few years ago, in 2008, when the predictable bursting of the housing bubble came, the politicians came to the American people and to the Congress and said, look, there's going to be a disaster. We have to bail out the whole system, or we'll have a depression. And lo and behold, members on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, in 2008, and even after the new administration came in, continue to do the same thing, continue to spend more money and borrow more money and print more money and even regulate more. And then they wonder why we haven't had much results from it. If you get into trouble because you've overspent, you can hardly get out of the problem by overspending. Maybe it should occur to somebody along the way that if an individual gets into trouble and they're deeply in debt and they can't borrow any money, maybe they have to work harder, get another job, or spend less money. But in Washington, it never seems to be the case. I think it's very logical, it makes common sense to say if a country is overextended, doing too much, spending too much, in too many wars that are undeclared, it's time to change policy and quit spending so much money.
Amen.
For many years I've talked about the monetary issue, and the monetary issue dealing with the soundness of a currency has a lot to do with our economic well-being, but it also has a lot to do with inviting the growth of government. And I'm talking, of course, about the Federal Reserve. Now, politicians are very good at making promises. That's how they stay in office. And the people generally get lulled to sleep and say, well, that's the job of the politician, to see how much he can bring back to the district, and he should be rewarded for this. So for many, many years, that was all that was necessary. Politicians would promise, whatever you want, we'll bring it back to you. We are the wealthiest country in the world, and we were very productive. We were a creditor nation, and we actually had so much we were loaning money out to foreign governments and foreign countries. And we did this for a long time, and we were able to afford living beyond our means. But then we didn't quite have enough wealth, so the taxes were pushed higher. Of course, the taxes got so high that people said, yeah, we want what we're getting, but we don't want to pay for it. We don't like these taxes. So they backed off on the taxes. So we went into borrowing. So we started borrowing, and that has worked, you know, rather well. But what happened after that was it undermined the financial system, the economic system, because we distorted the economy, too many of our jobs went overseas. We became less productive. There was less to pass out. So then they had to resort to something that was set up in 1913 under the Federal Reserve System, and that was, okay, we'll spend, we'll tax, we'll borrow, and we'll keep spending. You spending, every time we get in trouble, spend even more, and every time you need something, we'll just print the money. Well, the message of the last 4 years is that's coming to an end. I mean, we've tried all these things. Now we're poorer. We aren't the wealthiest country. We owe more money to foreigners than any other country has ever owed in the history of the world. And the financial bubble that still exists, even with the bursting of the housing bubble, is bigger than ever before. And this is the reason I emphasize monetary policy. If you didn't have a system of monetary debasement where the Federal Reserve could accommodate the politicians and the special interests in the banks, if they couldn't do that, there would be a limit. We would be forced to start cutting back. This is the reason that over the years that we have worked very hard to expose exactly what the Federal Reserve is all about, get a full audit of the Federal Reserve, and change the way it's being run. That is my goal. We didn't get a full audit last year, but we did get a partial audit. It was passed because we asked for a full audit, and they knew that people were waking up. Now 80% of the American people believe we in the Congress have responsibility of knowing exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing. But in this partial audit, it even amazed me at what they've been up to and to the degree that they have been. I've known for years what they were doing, but it's always done in total secrecy. But when the crash came and they said we needed to bail out those who had benefited from the bubble, the businesses and the banks and the mortgage companies and the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Mac's, when they needed bailed out because they didn't want to go broke, the Congress came and appropriated $1 trillion, and they bailed out car companies, and but the Federal Reserve got involved secretly. They started bailing out the banks. They extended not $1 trillion, they extended $15 trillion worth of credit in secret, without appropriation, without authorization, and they didn't want to tell us what they were doing. When we looked into it and finally got some information of that $15 trillion, $5 trillion went to bailing out banks overseas. And you know, today, yesterday, we know that Gaddafi was killed, and had to do with our foreign policy because we were very much involved in the overthrow of that government. But his bank was actually on the receiving end of that bailout, one of the banks was involved. That's how ridiculous this whole thing is. But to find out the real details, which countries and which banks get these benefits and for what reasons. But the real danger, of course, is it undermines the freedom of the American individuals, because when money is diluted, the value of your dollar goes down. So what's your incentive to save? You make 2% or 1%. So even if you say, look, I'm tired of it, I'm going to take responsibility myself, save money, put my money in CDs, I don't trust the stock market, then get 2% and then get taxed on it, and you can't live on it. But the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates very, very low, and they practically less than 1% or 1/4%. They give money to the banks. And then they loan it back to the government at 3%, keep the government going. At the same time, the people who have savings, the savings are eaten up. So the whole system is very, very corrupt, and it's benefits some very wealthy people. But you know, in studying the monetary issue, we find out that traditionally, if you destroy the value of money, there is a transfer of wealth from the middle class and from the poor to the wealthy, just by the nature of how they do that. Whoever gets the money first has the benefit. By the time the money circulates, and everybody knows there's too much money out there, prices go up, and what do the people get? They get the inflation tax. And that's what prices are doing now, today. Prices are going up, much more so than the federal government tells us. And that is a tax on us. So this transfer of wealth and this understanding, why I talk about it and worry about it to a degree, is I'm highly critical, as I've already been, to the corporations that benefit and the banks that benefit and all the privileges that corporations get. If you look at the medical changes that have occurred, Obamacare and even prescription drug programs, all of these always designed to help the people. Yet at the same time, guess who the lobbyists are? Drug companies and insurance companies. They're behind all this. They seem to be protected. But everybody who makes money, everybody who has a good living, everybody who is wealthy, didn't make it by getting it for, you know, as a special benefit from big government. So to just say anybody who's been successful, we have to take that away from and we have to throw the whole system out. I think that's wrong. I think what we want and what we've had and what I'd like to restore is rewards being given to the people who work hard, produce products, make an honest living, don't get any special benefits from the government, but take away all the benefits from those who are living off the government and make them go through the bankruptcy rather than putting the bankruptcy on the people and the people lose the job and then their houses. So it isn't set up fairly, and this is the reason that we have to think very seriously about restoring a free market economy, low taxes, and very few regulations. That's how we would get jobs back.